Okay guys, here's an update. Haven't had one in a little while, but new wiring harness is in. So it's a 1975 from the firewall inwards and a 1975 inside the cab. So had to rebuild the whole thing. If you've seen the other videos, the original one was completely trashed. This one is better. It's not perfect by any means, but it's functional. So what I did is I got rid of the bulkhead connector completely. So if you recall, this was trash. So these are the bulkhead connectors, right? And then there's a solid plastic piece. These would be the plugs on the engine side. So they were melted. They had holes drilled through them. I don't even know what was going on there. But so what I did is I omitted the bulkhead connector and I spliced the wires together the whole way. So got rid of that completely. It was a weak link. It was terrible. So then I did an ammeter delete. So ammeter here, right? Basically you're fusing these two together. Then you're redirecting the black wire away from going all the way up and back, and you're closing a loop in a shorter distance. You're adding some fusible links. Then from there, I tried to start it and it did not start. So had to troubleshoot some spark issues, some ignition issues, and I'm gonna cut to a video real quick of what that looks like. But essentially, in order to diagnose that, you take a tool that troubleshoots spark and you disconnect the coil wire from the distributor. You take the distributor end of it, you put this tool on there and you ground that tool and you can check for spark. So I'm gonna cut to a video right now where I show you that. Okay, so then I realized that I had spark. So looking at this, trying to figure out why it still wouldn't start, because spark is not necessarily just enough. You have to have the right amount of spark. And just because spark is going to the distributor doesn't mean that you're getting spark down to the spark plugs. So troubleshooting a couple things. What I realized is I had the wrong starter relay. So here's why. My old starter relay looks like this. Right, so this came off the 75. So 1975 starter relay, you have two pins, the solenoid and the battery lug. Looking at this guy, I needed more, right? Because you see that there's 4 terminals plus the battery solenoid plus the battery lug. So what I realized is I didn't have everything connected. I only had this, only had the orange connected. Was all I had was this orange connected. So I was missing these two. So I was missing the pink and I was missing this brown. So with this, there's not an option to hook up all those things. So I only had the orange hooked up. So because of that, I wasn't getting the full use of my ignition. So what I had to do is I had to figure out what that was. And so I had the wrong solenoid. So the solenoid for the starter relay. The starter relay I had was perfect for the 75, did not work with the 79 wiring harness, had to update. So these 4 wires, because 2 oranges are together, were all part of one plug that plugged on here. So I only had the orange, so I cut the plug. I put terminals on the other wires. And so when I did that, this is what it looks like. So my 2 orange are together here, right? And then I've got my brown and I got my pink. And so those are running exactly where they need to. And then I've got my greens, right? And then battery lugs. So, you know, we were talking earlier, fusible links, that's where they are. That's what they look like. So I have fusible links going all the way. There's another video on that. Then I, made sure that was properly grounded, which it is. And I even ran a wire straight to the ground for redundancy. So where I'm at now is troubleshooting some of the lighting things, which I want to talk about now. Okay, so the next step was I did start it. It did run for a little bit. It has a hard time starting and running. One of the things I need to do to address that is the electric choke. So I have an electric choke. It's not hooked up, never has been hooked up. Part of the reason probably it runs like crap. So I need to figure out how to do that. But in order to do that, I need to find a 12 volt ignition on wire. But here's the problem. I don't know where that would be, and the reason why is because my ignition switch was jacked. So this is a new one. So when I turn this, the different positions are not definitive and there's no spring back. So you should be able to hit a pretty good, you're here, you're starting, and then it springs back into the run. None of this has spring back. So I replaced the tumbler. So I got 2 new keys, which is nice. The other tumbler I think was jacked up anyway. I only had 1 key and that was pretty worn. But then I realized that I need more parts. So this right here is the actual ignition part of it, right? So this is the tumbler, this is the ignition switch. So your spring pressure and your positioning really comes from this guy. So that's 60 bucks. I need to replace this in order to get this functioning, in order to accurately test key on power to find a good 12-volt ignition source. But as it always happens, you do one thing and then you're like, well, you might as well, and then you might as well, and then you might as well. So I might as weld myself into replacing everything. So I'm going to be buying this next, and since I'm in here, I might as well replace my turn signal switch because it looks like crap. I doubt it even works. Then since I'm in here, I might as well replace my light switch because it's probably toast. And since I'm in there, I might as well replace my selector switch. So that's where I'm working on now. So rented a steering wheel puller, pulled the steering wheel, took off the retaining pin to get the steering wheel cover off, right? Because it sits on there. There's a bearing. That bearing is retained by the pin. This is actually an automatic steering column. I have a manual truck. Honestly, I don't know if this is original or if that's original, and I guess it doesn't matter. I don't know that there's any way to really find out based on my VIN. It's not that descriptive, but all signs indicate to probably what's happening is this is original and that's not. The reason why you can probably safely say that if you look at that, that doesn't look like factory work to me, but who knows. Anyway, that's where I'm at. So replacing all of those parts will hopefully give me the ignition, the spark, the electric choke stuff that I'm after. So moving over to here, these are the new parts. So I had to kind of search for some of these and do a little research. So this is the new tumbler. This is the floor switch for the selector. This is the light switch inside the dash. So this is what the tumblers look like. This is the old one. So don't think it was working very well. I think it was pretty worn out, and my key I don't think was original, and I think somebody probably hollowed all the guts out. So it's just good to replace it since I'm in there. So that was what that starter relay looked like. Notice it had fewer pins than the new one, so had to replace that with the new one. And when I did, I got the functionality I was looking for. So on to the next step, which would be once I get this replaced with the switch on the inside, I'll replace these, which will hopefully close the loop. And then from there, I'll be able to find that 12-volt ignition source, which will give me the electric choke, which will give me the ability to fire this bad boy up, but then also test the lights, right? Since I've got everything disconnected. So none of my lights work. I have hooked them up finally with the grounds. No power coming here when I turn the switch on. No power coming to the other side when I turn the switch on. So the question is where's the switch? But you've got to close the loop, right? Because you've got a circuit. So I've got a light switch, but in order to make it actually work, I need to make sure that I have the beam selector switch, which closes the loop, because I could see how not having a switch there breaks the circuit and power is not going to flow, right? So that's where I'm at. So a lot of stuff in one relatively short video, between electric choke, between lighting, between the spark troubleshooting, but that's where we're at. Haven't worked on it for a while, but I'm back at it, and I'm hoping that this winter I'll have everything tuned up and ready to go. So thanks for watching.